Diablo 4 Season 1, Season of the Malignant. It started about a week ago, and I have been pleasantly surprised with how much fun I've been having, even after just the absolute bombardment of nerfs we got beforehand. Now, if you watched my checklist video, I said I was going to be playing a sorcerer this season. After all the nerfs, I decided that I was going to play something that I wanted to play since the beginning of this game, and that is going to be a Necromancer. Now, I know a lot of people are playing Minion Necromancer or Bone Necromancers, but I decided to play a Blood Necromancer, and I have been absolutely blown away by its performance. I cleared the World Tier dungeon for World Tier 3 at like 5 or 4 levels under. I also can just run around Hell Tides at level 50 and fight level 58 enemies and have zero concern for my well-being, because this build is truly and honestly probably one of the best things I have ever played with inside of any Diablo game. I played a bunch of 3, I played a tiny bit of 2, but for Diablo 4, this is one of the best builds I have ever played, and it is amazing. So let's start with our skill tree. For our basic skills, we're going to take Hemorrhage. We're going to take 1 point of this. Burst an enemy's blood, dealing X amount of damage. Hemorrhage has a 20% chance to form a blood orb. Blood orbs, when picked up, are going to heal us for 15% of our maximum life, which is going to be really nice. We have Enhanced Hemorrhage. After picking up a blood orb, your next hemorrhage also deals damage to enemies around your target and grants 2 additional essence per enemy hit. And Initiates Hemorrhage. Hemorrhage grants 1.6 base life as Fortify each time it hits an enemy, and has a 1.5% chance per enemy hit to fortify you for 100% base life. Now, fortified characters take 10% reduced damage. You become fortified when you have as much Fortify as current life. So the whole point is to just keep hitting things with Hemorrhage and get your Fortify up, so this way you can become Fortify and get the bonus damage reduction, which is super helpful in this game right now when our armor mods or our armor stats for damage reduction aren't as good as they used to be. For core skills, we're going to talk about the star of the show, and that is going to be Bloodlance. We're going to take 5 points of this, where we throw a Bloodlance that lingers in an enemy for 3 seconds, dealing X amount of damage to the enemy and all other lanced enemies. Again, this is the star of the show. This is the thing that we're going to be using a lot for this build, as it's the main focus of it. We're going to take Enhanced Bloodlance. Bloodlance pierces through enemies who are currently lanced, dealing 10% reduced damage to subsequent enemies after the first. In Supernatural Bloodlance, after casting Bloodlance 6 times, your next cast of Bloodlance is guaranteed to overpower and spawns a blood orb under the first enemy hit. Overpower deals bonus damage based on the sum of your current life plus your fortified life. With this build, we're going to be having a ton of maximum life, and we're pretty much always going to have some form of fortify, so our overpower damage is going to be pretty good. And it's really nice to see those blue numbers pop up when you throw one Bland Lance into a whole group of enemies and they all just explode. It's really good. In this same tree, we're going to take Unliving Energy. Your maximum essence is increased by 3. We're only taking 1 point of this so we can move on to unlock Imperfectly Balance. We only have 1 point into this right now because it is a bug, but with 1 point, your core scales are going to cost 3% more essence, but deal 5% increased damage. When you put all 3 points into this, which we're going to do when this is no longer a bug, they're going to cost 9, and they're going to deal 15% increased damage, which is going to be amazing. And finally, for this core skill area, we're going to take Hewed Flesh. 3 points into this as well. For a lucky hit, for our damage to have a 12% chance to create a corpse at the target's location, the chance is doubled against the bosses. So this is really good for corpse generation, especially when there are no enemies for you to actually kill. Like, for example, in boss rooms, you have a 24% chance with any damage you do to make a corpse, which is going to be super helpful when we talk about some skills and some stuff later on in this video. Moving on to our next cluster of skills, which is going to be our Macabre and our corpse skills, the first set of them. We have Blood Mist, which I took 5 of. I'm going to reduce this down to 4 once Imperfectly Balanced gets patched, so I can put another point into that. But for Blood Mist, we're going to disperse into a Bloody Mist, becoming immune for 3 seconds. Your movement speed is reduced by 20%, and you periodically deal 2% damage to enemies and heal for X amount of your maximum life. Higher maximum life, higher healing. We're also going to take Enhanced Blood Mist. casting a skill that overpowers reduces the cooldown of Blood Mist by 2 seconds. We're going to be casting a ton of overpowered, so the cooldown on Blood Mist is going to be non-existent at certain points, and we're going to take Ghastly Blood Mist. Blood Mist leaves behind a corpse every 1 second. Again, this is very helpful for corpse generation, for other things that we're going to talk about later on in this build. Moving on to our curse skills, we're going to take Decrepify. We're going to take 1 point of this, curse the targeted area. Enemies afflicted by Decrepified are slow by 40% and deal 20% less damage for 10 seconds. Decrepify is one of those nice little cherries on top, and I have no complaints about it. It's really, really good. We're going to take Enhanced Decrepify, so on lucky hit, enemies hit while afflicted with Decrepify will have a 10% chance to be stunned for 2 seconds. Amazing, a little bit of crowd control, no complaints there. Really, really good. And Abhorrent Decrepify. Lucky hit chance. Enemies hit while afflicted with Decrepify have a 15% chance to reduce your active cooldowns by 1 second. Again, super helpful. Anything that can give us cooldown reduction in any capacity is going to be amazing. We're going to take Amplified Damage, 3 points of this. We're going to deal 12% increased damage to cursed enemies, and we're going to be cursing enemies in large groups. Again, when we talk about the next set of skills on our corpse skills, this is going to be made very clear why we are able to do this. We're going to take Death's Embrace. Close enemies take 6% more damage from you and deal 9% less damage to you. I know this is a Corpse Lance build. You're going to want to kind of be far, but play this very up close because you're going to get a lot of benefit from this skill. And finally on this tree, we're going to take 1 point of Death's Reach. Again, once Imperfectly Balanced is fixed, I'm going to cycle this point back into that. You deal 4% increased damage to distance enemies. Right now, it's a nice little added benefit, but again, once Imperfectly Balanced is fixed, we are taking this point and putting it into Imperfectly Balanced to increase that benefit at this point to the maximum of the 9 and 15 that we're going to get for those 3-pointed values. Moving on to this next cluster of skills, our Corpse and Macabre 2 skills, we're going to take 1 point of Corpse Tendrils. Veins burst out of our corpses, pulling in enemies, stunning them for 3 seconds, and dealing X amount of damage to them does not consume the corpse. This is going to be super helpful for grouping up enemies for things like Decrepify. We're also going to take Enhanced Corpse Tendril. Enemies who are in range of Corpse Tendrils are slowed by 50% before being pulled. Again, super helpful. They can't walk out of it. They're going to get yoinked. They're going to get stunned. They're going to get Decrepified, and they're going to get absolutely obliterated by Blood Lances. And the final thing we're going to take for Corpse Tendrils is Blighted Corpse Tendrils. Corpse Tendrils have a 35% chance to drop a Blood Orb when damaging enemies. This is a 35% chance on every single enemy that is pulled by Corpse Tendrils. So if you have a very large group, you're going to get a 35% chance on all of them, which could very well generate a ton of Blood Orbs, which is going to be super helpful for maintaining our life and super helpful when we go over our legendary aspects that we're throwing into this build as of right now. Moving on to the more passive side of this particular cluster, we're going to take 1 point of Gruesome Mending. While below 50% health life, you receive 10% more healing from all sources. Nice little benefit, but we're really taking it to unlock the rest of this tree, which we're going to start with 3 points in Coalesced Blood. While healthy, your blood skills deal 18% increased damage. We are considered healthy when we are above 80% life. We're going to have a lot of life. We're going to be able to take advantage of that 80% a majority of the time. We're also going to take 3 points of Drain Vitality. Lucky hit, hitting enemies with a blood skill has up to a 30% chance to fortify you for 8% of your base life. Again, another chance for Fortify, which is going to help out our overpowered skill, which plays very heavily into Tides of Blood. 3 points here as well. Your blood skills deal 15% increased overpowered damage. This is doubled while healthy. So while you're above that 80% life, you're going to have a 30% increase to overpowered damage, which is going to be overpowered. It's going to be super good, and it allows our Blood Lances and even our Hemorrhage to absolutely wild amount of damage when you have those large group of enemies. The next cluster is going to include our ultimate skill, and we're going to be taking Bone Storm for 1 point. A swirling storm of bones appears around you and your golem, dealing 180% damage to surrounding enemies over 10 seconds. I know this is a blood build, this is a bone skill, but Bone Storm is really good because of Prime Bone Storm. Your damage reduction is increased by 15% while Bone Storm is active. It gives you that added extra protection for just casting an ability that's actually really good, and it's also going to help with our damage because of Supreme Bone Storm. Our critical strike chance is going to be increased by 20% while Bone Storm is active. So while Bone Storm is active, which we're going to try to do a lot of the time, we're going to have increased damage reduction and an increased critical strike chance, which is going to help out our Blood Lances, because again, the overpowered and critical strike can stack, which is where you get those orange numbers from when you're playing, which is again really helpful. We're going to take 3 points of Inspiring Leader, so this way after you've been healthy for at least 4 seconds, you and your minions gain 12% attack speed. We're going to be healthing a majority of the time, so we're always going to have the benefit of that 12% attack speed. We're also going to take 3 points of Standalone, increases damage reduction by 18%, reduced by 2 for each active minion. We aren't going to have any active minions in this build. They're all sacrifice. We're going to go over those sacrifices when we get to the end of the abilities and the skills. So we're going to always have this 18% bonus damage reduction, which is super helpful. And on top of that, we're going to take 3 points of Memento Mori, sacrificing both Skeleton Warriors and Skeletal Mages, increase their sacrifice bonus by 60%. Again, we're going to go over the sacrifice bonuses after we talk about our key passive, which is Rothma's Vigor. Increases your maximum life by 10. After being healthy for 12 seconds, your next blood skill overpowers. This is really nice. It gives us that added maximum life for our overpower damage, and it gives us a guaranteed overpower on a blood skill every 10 seconds. My favorite thing to do actually is to walk into a group of just high density mobs and ads and a few elites and popping Blood Mist while this is active, because each tick of Blood Mist is going to be overpowered, which is hilarious. Just watch things just melt from a defensive skill. It's hilarious, it's awesome, and I highly recommend you try it and have a good laugh. Moving on to sacrifices. For our Skeleton Warriors, we're going to sacrifice our Skirmishers, so our critical strike chance is increased. For Skeleton Mages, we're going to get rid of Bone Mages, so our overpower damage is increased. And for Golems, we're going to get rid of Iron Golem, so we deal an X amount of critical strike damage. These are all going to be very helpful for this build. Increased overpower damage is amazing. Critical strike chance is going to be super helpful, and critical strike damage is also going to be helpful when it comes to the raw power of this build. Moving on to aspects, we're going to start with our sacrificial aspect, which is where our sacrifice bonuses are going to be increased by 15 to 25%. A huge bonus here. It's really nice. It adds a lot to our overpower damage, our critical strike chance, and our critical strike damage. We have the Gore Quills aspect. Blood Lance will consume blood orbs to also conjure lances from them. Each additional blood lance deals 20 to 50% of normal damage and prioritizes unlanced enemies. Really helpful. Corpse Tendrils is going to make a ton of blood orbs. This is going to consume those blood orbs, which also plays into aspect of potent blood. While at full life, blood orbs grant 10 to 20 essence. This is a nice little battery for this build, as at every time one of these Gore Coils activates from a blood orb and makes a blood lance, it is going to give us essence, which is really nice. I also have Blood Seekers aspect. Blood Lance deals 15 to 25% increased damage to its primary target per lanced enemy. Just a nice little thing to have. You don't really need it. Also going to have aspect of Disobedience. You gain 0.25 to 0.5 increased armor for 4 seconds when you deal any form of damage, stacking to 15 to 30%. Again, super helpful. I know this was nerfed. Still super nice to have in this build for that extra little bit of damage reduction, which is also the same reason we're going to take aspect of Might. Basic skills grant 20% damage reduction for 2 to 6 seconds, and Exploiter's aspect. You have 20% increased crowd control duration. While enemies are unstoppable, you deal 20 to 40% increased damage to them. I don't know what enemies count as unstoppable, so someone down in the comments is going to have to tell me. But we're going to have 20% increased duration to our slows and our stuns, which is going to be really nice. And finally, we're going to talk about the Malignant Hearts I had in at the time of making this build. We're going to have the Sacrilegious, where walking near a corpse automatically activates an equipped corpse skill every seconds, dealing 30 to 20% reduced damage. Really nice. Auto Corpse Tendrils, just super nice. We're also going to have Revenge. 10 to 20% of incoming damage is instead suppressed. When you use a defensive, subterfuge, or macabre skill, all suppressed damage is amplified by 250% and explodes, dealing up to X amount of fire damage to nearby enemies. I don't really notice the fire damage all too much, but the suppressed incoming damage is absolutely amazing. And finally, in this particular video, I had Determination. Resource draining effects are 90 to 100% less effective. In addition, gain 3 to 8% increased resource generation. I didn't have any Wrathful Hearts to put in. I still don't have any Wrathful Hearts to put in. That's my next step, is finding one that I want to put into this build. But those are the Malignant Hearts, the sacrifices, the aspects, and the skills for this particular build. This is a very long video that I'm compared to used to making, and for that I apologize. There's just a ton of information to go through with these Diablo builds, and this is the first one I'm making. So if you have any recommendations to make this better, please let me know down in the comments. I will take that constructive criticism and I will put it towards the next video I make, whether it be another Diablo one or even a Destiny one, because at the end of the day, constructive criticism helps me help you guys make the content you want to see. So with that, if you liked the video, please leave a like, comment with all the things I've asked you to comment down below, and even tell me some random fact about the game that you like. Doesn't matter to me. And please subscribe if you found this build to be helpful and that you decide to use any part of it. Please subscribe. We're on the last 200 I need for my 1,000 sub goal, which is going to be super nice, and I will always appreciate any support you want to give me, and I will see you guys in the next video.